Well, it's actually working today. First Monday in a while. Hello, everybody. How you doing? Good to see you. A little Boss Skaggs in the background, and we love Boss Skaggs. Yes, we do. And so anyway, how's it going? Hope you're doing good. It's a lot of weird stuff, folks. I got to tell you, I spent the weekend working in the garden, just spending a lot of time in meditation and reflection, listened to many of my mentor, Alan Watts, and had a chance just to go deep, do a deep dive. And yeah, so how are y'all out? Hello, Susie Q, Lost in Space. Hey, Deborah, how you doing? Robert V, how you doing, my friend? John Price, good to see you from Abilene. Hello, Belanca. David Barry, how are you? Emperor Rex, good to see you. Big Teddy Smooth. Haven't seen you before. Good to see you. Merrick, good to see you. And Sherry, beloved abstract. Bernadette, good to see you. Nina the Mystic, how are you, my dear? Ethereal Waves. Ooh, I like that. That's pretty cool. Hey, 7P, how you doing? George, good to see you. And Kay, and boy, just think agape love and forever. Peace. Yes. Dragon Soul Fox, how are you doing? Man, it's so good to be here. Yeah. Strange things. I'll tell you, this is really a time where you have to keep grounded. There is so much uncertainty of the energies. You know, if you look at Homo sapiens, that's what we are. The genus of what sapiens have actually been able to accomplish. And if you were honest about this, and you looked at this and you looked at it objectively. Hello, Twisted Isby, how you doing? Yeah, so many fake people. Hey, Regina, good to see you, my dear. It's so true. You go back all the way back to the Sumerian culture. We don't know much about the cultures at Göbekli Tepe and some of the pre-comet impact societies that lived here. There were many different versions of man. Man was evolving. There were the Denisovans, there was the Cro-Magnons, there was the Neanderthals. You had the hobbits. I mean, very different Earth back then. And then sapiens came along. It's said that we came along. You want to know how the story goes? And, we have Mary Gleason, who is studying anthropology. Congratulations on I think you graduated this year. So she is looking to do her postgraduate work, I believe. But here's the point. I have the book, read it. It's an interesting book. It's an old one. You don't find it in the schools, but it's pretty well thought that wherever sapiens originated from, the reason why we got smarter was that we ate brains. We were cannibals. We ate human brains. We ate simian brains. And so the story goes that that's how we migrated from wherever we came from. So pretty weird. Hello, Marsha Price. How are you doing, my dear? So good to see you. Spirit Girl, hello. So getting back to the Sumerians, if you look at culture, you look at societal norms, how we conduct our lives, how we measure our lives, sapiens haven't accomplished a lot. It's only been really in the last, 200-300 years that we've actually advanced to where we are today. And I think it could be argued that we really haven't advanced. What I see going on out there in the world, and all of you are witnessing the same thing, it's changing. I've never seen it in my lifetime, and I've been here a little while, change this radically. I was very much a part of the counterculture. emanating out of the 60s into the early 70s. We were questioning authority. We were questioning a lot of things. But, and as divisive as it was, listen, I got the crap beat out of me by a couple of cops when I was 16. I had hair, long hair. And that was the only reason. You know, but did I go down and start burning cities and, you know, going? No, we didn't. And the energy, it's really, really strange energy. It really is. I can tell you for a fact that I didn't get to all my emails over the weekend because I just didn't really want to spend a lot of time on the computer. I'm really getting myself away from that when I have the opportunity. And a lot of strange stuff. A lot of prophecies where people are saying that things could get really, really interesting at the end of the year. Hearing that from so many different avenues, manifestations. We talk about it here all the time, how we manifest our realities. If that's true, then, ladies and gentlemen, I contend and I put before you, if that is true, then it has to be true that we live in multiple realities at the same time. For an example, let me just pick somebody's name as I see coming through, that someone who I've emailed a lot. And let's use Deborah Truex. How's that? Deborah, you're going to be the class guinea pig. So I'm going to have you come up to the front. And so here's the deal. And imagine this, I'm standing before you and I have Deborah right beside me, and I play a scene. Doesn't matter what scene it is. I play it for you as the class, I play it for Deborah as a participant, and I play it for me as the one conducting and driving the bus. That is a reality. We all can say for a fact, it can be proven scientific, spiritually, everywhere you want to go, that all of us would be witnessing the same event. However, the reality is this. There's, I don't know, a couple hundred in the watching. There are 200 different realities being experienced. We all can share in a reality, but the reality is that we're each individually in our own reality, which therefore would then validate the complete theory, construct, concept, ideology, theology, philosophy, that we do in fact exist in multiple realities. In one of Alan's lessons that I listened to over the weekend, he brings out a very good point about our individual existence. We will proclaim that we exist. Why do we exist? Because we will say we have consciousness. We can express ourselves. And within that parameter, within that definition, we say that that validates existence. I am, I think, therefore I am. Right? Well, if that's the case, by the way, I meditated this out. I'll let everyone see. I'll check the things out here. But if that is the case, then the following statement is 100% authentic, true reality. Cannot be argued against, cannot be proven anything but absolute truth. And here it is, folks. You are already dead. Everyone watching me has a sentence of death on you. You cannot escape it. You cannot run from it. There is no alternate reality that you can invent to ever escape it. You are, in fact, a dead man walking. Now, you need to accept that. You accept that, you move on with life. But you have to accept that that is the only reality that exists. It's the only common denominator amongst all these other realities, these multiverses that exist. The fact that if you're here, you are a dead man, dead woman. You're already dead. It's an absolute certainty. Now, the question is, what date you will die? Well, that has already been determined as well. That's reality. Now, we'll go, you see, the human consciousness will come up with a myriad of excuses, illusions, and delusions and say, well, yeah, the body dies, but the spirit goes on. How do you know that? You do not know that. There is, at best, circumstantial evidence. But we do know everything in this plane of reality dies. Everything. Even matter itself disintegrates. Now, we have a law called the first and second law of thermodynamics, which the first law says what? That energy is neither created nor destroyed, correct? But that's man's perception. Now, we can quantify that because we can actually measure the decay. But even that which we've been measuring in decay is now proving to be an error. So, everything in this reality, everything decays. How can we then call this reality life? Because what you're saying is that life is in fact death. Otherwise, you're saying that death is eternal. And we can get all philosophical here about it, but let's just be real common sense about this. Everything dies. Wouldn't that be the more accurate definition that this plane is actually the experiencing of death, and that when that final death comes, we're actually transmuted into life? Unless death is a recurrence on every multiple plane. Which is it? Let's quit playing games. Metaphysical people love playing mind games. That's the one thing I have, about it. They love playing mind games. John Lennon was right. People love playing mind games. And the one mind game we play the best at is denying death. Oh, we'll acknowledge it, but we live a lifetime denying it. But is it really death that we're afraid of? Listen, you were never afraid of your birth. I know some people say they have memories, but the vast majority, you don't remember your birth. You don't remember if you were afraid of your birth. You can think that, whatever, but I mean, we're getting honest here, common sense. So the whole point to this show here is we're living in multiple realities. Now, the question is the constant, and this could be a mathematical equation of death represented by D, is it a constant in every multiverse, every multiple plane? Would it permeate all multiple realities? Is there a place that you could go in the astral plane that you don't come back? Well, sweetheart, that means your body's dead. If you've cut the silver cord, you ain't coming back. And is there only one death then? But then it couldn't really be death, because how can this be life when life is so short, unless we're trying to trick ourselves into thinking that the afterlife is going to be like this life, that it'll have some similarity in some kind of physical existence, in some kind of emotional relationships with other spirits, because that's the only reality we know of. I don't think so. Because that in itself is limiting. That by its own definition would be death. Wouldn't life be eternal, infinite, non-finite? I don't know. I have my opinion. But everything I see, everything I study, everything I read, I see this. People are thinking that this is the end of days. I've read a number of articles. People getting prophecies that major calamity, major destruction. Well, if you put those two words at the same time, what are you talking about? Death? And again, the foundation of this, do we exist in multiple realities? The question would be, we have to. I don't consider this existence life. We define that because it's the only thing we have. We have the antithesis of life, which would be death. But if you measure life, how do we measure life? You say, well, my consciousness will transcend my death. Okay, so are you still alive? I mean, how can you say that? What do you mean you're alive? Just because you can think? You think that that is life? You think that that's what defines being alive? That you're aware, you have consciousness, and you can think. And you think that that transmutes over into what? The ethereal? The ether? You see, we play these games because it makes us deflect from the value proposition that every person here, every plant, every animal is under a death sentence. Now, we don't like to think like that. And all you're doing, sweetheart, is sweating your time out until you're going to die. And you're going to die in a number of different ways. I mean, apparently, you know, the New World Order, if you look at some of the crap that's going on, yeah, it looks like death will be coming to every neighborhood. But is that death? Again, we define life by the perception of what we think, what we measure by these five physical senses. And the mind plays the games because the mind can't handle the fact that it will cease. It is a natural defense mechanism. Every living thing, if it's in fact living, has. It is the master delusion that you never die. Oh, you think everybody else does, but you yourself, why, you don't think about your moment of demise. But then again, how can we define life? If you're saying life is even defined by 100 years, that's ridiculous. That's less than 33,000 days. That's life. And you can't transfer the description of life here and transpose it over into another plane of existence. That is where religion deceives every human being. Every religion on this planet deceives that person into accepting a definition of an afterlife. But it's all predicated upon the foundation of what this experience is, which validates that it's a complete lie. It's a fraud. I've read both books, the Tibetan Book of the Dead, the Egyptian Book of the Dead. It doesn't get you anywhere. Why? Because it does not describe what is there. So how do we know that what we are in fact living is death? You die every day, sweetheart. You have thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of cells that are dying on you right now. You have died to the life that you lived yesterday. You are dead to the time that you were a child. Those are lives that you have already died to in this realm. And if you happen to have a sentence that condemns you to live out 70, 80, 90, 100 years, you'll die many more times than a person who's died when they were 30. Oh, we don't like to think about this, but it is reality. And it prepares the psyche for anything that's coming. Revolution, something from the heavens, whatever. And Alan Watts said it best. If you learn to accept that this is most likely your death, that you will never have to experience again. I called it the passage, the rite of birth passage. You are born into death. You're not born into life. You're born into the subatomic disintegration of matter. It's exactly what you're born into. All of us are. By its very foundation of that alone, it defines the death process. When you are born, you begin to die. So how can we call this the land of the living? I can see no one is following in the chat room. They have another conversation. But for those of you who are listening, the fact is, it can only come down to this. We're not living life at all here. We're experiencing the death process. They say that if you spend enough time here, and I read the story of the woman, 119 years old, 120. She says she's cursed. We talked about this, showed you the article. She says long life is a curse. And you know what she said? She wants to die. She wants to get the hell out of here. She's sick of this place. Now, maybe, just maybe, if we approached it in that way, when we start looking at the subject of the occult, of magic, maybe those are, in fact, the arcane knowledge, the wisdom, that when you begin to prepare your complete being, that you've already been immersed into the baptism of death. Think about it. When you come through the chute, the birth canal, it is a baptism. It's a baptism of blood. Straight up. Now, how you ever want to define it afterwards, that's your trip, baby. You define it as you go. This is a serious topic. It's not for the immature, the ignorant. I believe that to become a true wizard, you have to understand the dimensions, the different planes. Now, we talked last week, and there's a lot. In fact, that guy received from an actual institute that actually is into microdosing, scientifically, government funded. But yeah, The gal wrote me and she says, we love your show. You really explain it exactly how it is. It's learning the existence that when you have a psychotropic psychedelic drug, that your mind begins to shift into perceptions of different realities. Now that brings on a whole new connotation when you think about, all right, so what am I really doing here? Well, again, you see, I think it really comes down to everything into my thinking of two buckets. Bucket number one is that humans are evolving. We've been allowed to evolve with no interference. That's actually, I think, a bucket of BS. But anyway, the second bucket is that we are an experiment. Not everyone houses a body has what we would call the same essence. And I doubt if it was really of our making. It appears by all indication we have been heavily manipulated by another intelligence. Whether it's a higher intelligence, I don't know. They have technology. I spent a little time in my fantasy reading. You know, I read about 4 or 5 different books at the same time. And this one was really interesting. It's onboard encounters, 15 stories that had never been written about of people who have had encounters with ET. What they've encountered was what people would call Allah, Jehovah, God, the Father, the Holy Spirit. They're all alien. Every book talks about these beings coming from the sky, not from the ground, but from the sky. Then they take over the ground and they take over everything else. And they subjugate the life forms on every planet they encounter life forms. Apparently, we happen to be extra special. To find bipedals, humanids, that have the ability to actually converse, yeah, we're one step above the monkeys. Oh, people don't like it. Yeah, we are simians. You just got to accept that, baby. People don't like to say, I didn't come from no monkey. The hell you didn't. How do you know where you came from? You don't know where you came from. We have simian blood in us. It's a fact. So there was a marriage somewhere down the back road, and, So let's talk about what we're facing today. We're studying magic, the occult. We're studying how to become a wizard. Now, this is one of many different avenues, but I think magic has always been here. I think the mind virus came in about 2,000 years ago. It was a new alien species that took over basically the madness of humanity. You look at the last 2,000 years of humanity, of Homo sapiens, bloody. And if you look at the 3,000 years prior to that, bloody. Very few incidences in our history where we have ever lived in peace. Now, that should tell us something right there. Why are we a warrior species? I had an encounter once, and they said they don't come here. They go on the outside peripherals to talk to the higher consciousness, those of us who can get up there, as they kind of put it, because Homo sapiens are a warrior species. We are the most bloodiest, devious species, probably, well, put it this way. If life exists out there, it's probably like us, warrior-like, conquering, assimilating, using up natural resources, returning the things back, killing planets, and moving on. It's a fact. When I left Christianity, I left because of the fact when I realized it hit me. I cried like a baby. Ask Lynn. I was in a fetal position. It crushed me. But you rebuild. Hopefully, with a broader perspective, a much more open mind, and I would say yes. But nevertheless, I have to be honest with myself even more than you. I can't, if I lie to myself, then, it's all a deception. And I look at Homo sapiens, personally, I don't see us surviving. We will eventually wipe ourselves out. That, I think, is the true destiny for Homo sapiens. And as much as we want to sit here and say, well, we can come together and we can manifest another reality, it's not going to happen for the planet. And prove me wrong. Show me where Homo sapiens, show me a period that has lasted more than 100 years without war, without bloodshed. No. Every nation that got here is because it suppressed the original inhabitants. United States, we stole the land. Why? Because the white Europeans stole it before them. Mesoamericans didn't have a choice in this. They suffered the blunt end of the blade of the Christian religion, which, by the way, is doing the same thing these Homo sapiens are doing in the streets, tearing down the statutes, trying to rewrite history. Well, that's exactly what the Christians did, the Spaniards, when they went into Mesoamerica. They killed them all, burned their books. Why? Because we love being ignorant. And you can see it taking place, acting out in every city in America right now today. You've got fools out there, no different than the Taliban when they were blowing up the ancient monuments. It's because that's what we do. We're a bloodthirsty warrior race, species. Oh, we like to say we live in love, but every politician out there has ripped you off, ripped me off. They're all liars. We love being lied to. In fact, we demand that every commercial you've ever watched was a deception, a lie. Every political commercial you're going to see is a lie. It's all it is. It's all about lies. I'm fired up again. Yeah, because I'm fed up with this nonsense. Lynn and I were talking last night. We don't like it here. I don't like what's happening. There is such a division. This is we call it spiritual, but I believe it's alien. They're all around us. And if there is something of a cosmic value that's about to hit us in time with all this, maybe these higher intelligence said it's time to cut Homo sapiens out of the scene. It's time we wipe them out, all of them. Make sure not one survives, and let's start over. I don't know. Maybe most people aren't ready for this. I see it over and over again. And, if you say that, UFOs exist, our government apparently our senators, the ones that have got cured from ascites, are really now concerned. Apparently they were in some top secret meeting with the Pentagon and they're scared shitless. Now that bothers me when I see a redneck or a carpetbagger millionaire who suddenly starts grabbing his ass and be going, oh no. So maybe there is something out there. I contend that the Hebrew God is no God at all. It's just an alien. Came down in a spaceship. And all the asshole angels that it brought with it, the murderous sons of bitches they are humanity's enemy. If we ever see an angel, you need to kill it. Get rid of it. It'll kill you. Because you see, we can't have angels and demons if we're not playing the game. Because if we got angels and demons, well, what are they? Are you saying that they're imitating life in another dimension? Are they dead or are they alive? How do you know they exist at all? How do you know that they're of this earth? I mean, if they can kill hundreds of thousands of Homo sapiens like that, don't sound too friendly to me. Folks, we've got to change our thinking. It's not working. All the crap for the last 10 years is not working. If it was working, we wouldn't be seeing what's going on in the world. Because they ain't getting the message. They didn't get the telegram. They didn't get the email. They didn't get the text message. It's just nuts. There is a book. Let me pull it up. Talking about the Archons. I gave everyone out this. Now, this was from a person who was doing some study, and we have the benefit of their notes. You'll obviously see that they were German, but let's look at something here. It says, in the beginning, that's how every holy book starts, in the beginning. Well, if there was a beginning, then that means it's finite. It could not be the beginning. How could an infinite being suddenly have a finite beginning? You want to email me, explain how that can be? Okay, let's continue. The Gnostic core belief was a strong dualism. That's what it's all at. That the world of matter was deadening and inferior to a remote, non-physical home. Did you get that? That the world of matter, that's when I first came on here, this is why this is not life. This realm is not life. Quit calling it the land of the living. This is the realm of death. It permeates everything, even matter. It says it right here. Matter, the world of matter was deadening and inferior to a remote, non-physical home, to which an interior divine spark, they don't tell us how it starts, it's just there, in most humans aspire to return after death. So we could really say that we want to go back home to return to life. We want to get out of this death sentence because, folks, we have been branded with the death sentence. It's the hardest thing of having children, and every parent, grandparent knows this. When they're born, they're going to die. All the memories. You see how deep this goes? This led them to an absorption of the Jewish creation myths in Genesis. And by the way, the Jews never wrote Genesis. They stole it, at least the first part of it, which they obsessively reinterpreted to formulate allegorical explanations of how humans ended up trapped in the world of matter. The basic Gnostic story which varied in details from teacher to teacher, was this. So let's read how this supposedly began. Got a nice glass of cold tea, not drinking it. In the beginning, there was an unknowable, immaterial, and invisible God. Oh, I could tear this up for a second. So how do we know that it knew of itself? It's unknowable. How can it become material if it was immaterial? And how could it become visible if it was invisible? Sometimes called the Father of all, and sometimes by other names. He was neither male nor female, and was composed of an implicitly finite amount of a living non-physical substance. Oh, folks, we could get into some breakout rooms on that one alone. He was neither male nor female, and was composed of an implicitly finite amount of a living non-physical substance. So already we're dealing with beginnings and ends. Surrounding this God was a great empty region called the Pleroma, the fullness. Beyond the Pleroma lay empty space. One of the things back in the 90s, I lived in Knoxville and had a lot of friends, teachers at the University of Tennessee, and I knew one astrophysicist professor, and it was really fun because we would sit around drinking wine, playing chess, and, as I kept telling him, the great thing about Star Trek was that Gene Roddenberry tried to portray what is before this. If the universe is expanding, then that implies it's expanding into something. What's that something? Is that the nothingness? The God acted to fill the Pleroma through a series of emanations, a squeezing off of small portions of its non-physical, energetic, divine material. Wow. In most accounts, there are 30 emanations in 15 complementary pairs, each getting slightly less of the divine material and therefore being slightly weaker. The emanations are called eons, eternities. The Apostle Paul wrote the eternities of eternities, meaning eternity is not eternal life. Implies there is probably another death or another transmutation, and are mostly named personifications in Greek of abstract ideas. Like the God, they are non-physical light beings. They are described as androgynous or bisexual. So being gay is happy. The eons, in turn, generated large amounts of simpler entities, sometimes called angels. The first of the great emanations, according to several Gnostic groups, is named Barbello. This is a predominantly female persona. A common stipulation is that only Barbello is able to see or communicate with the invisible Father God. Now, when we read the Liber of Lilith over a year and a half ago, Lilith said the same thing. In fact, I like what the Liber of Lilith, we'll probably pull that up again. Lilith gave us, I think, even a more exact representation of what is being said here. Even other non-physical dwellers in the Pleroma have no contact with the remote entity, sometimes called the silent God. Often there is a central trinity of Father, Mother, Barbello, and Son. The common outcome of the myth rests on the 13th emanation or eon, Sophia. This is both the Greek word for wisdom and also a woman's name, Sophia. I like that. Sophia becomes jealous of the power of the Father of all to create. Without permission of her consort, this is exactly what Lilith said, because she, well, in this case, we're using Sophia, but I think Lilith could suffice here. The other of her matching pairs, she gives birth to otherwise creatures that creates an offspring. It proves to be monstrous, with the head of a lion and the body of a serpent. She names him Yaldabaoth. He is also called Shaklas in the Hebrew, the fool, and Samuel, the blind dragon. Wow. Ashamed of her progeny, folks, we'll probably do this. We'll bring up the Liber Lilith, because we're all still in the teaching here, and see how this actually correlates almost concept for concept. Ashamed of her progeny, Sophia takes Yaldabaoth outside of the pleroma and hides him in a cloud. That's exactly what Lilith said, the blind dragon. There he matures alone, having no knowledge of his origins. Sounds like us, doesn't it? Imbued from birth with a portion of the divine material he inherited from his mother, Yaldabaoth, now given the title Demiurge, or Greek for craftsman, creates a dozen Archons, commanders. Notice, they are not alien, you can see it scratched out there, parasites. And then in a mirror image of the great emanations of the pleroma, hundreds of lesser angels. Yaldabaoth then creates the cosmos, understood to mean not the entire universe, as in modern usage, but the known planets. There were, in the order then understood, Moon, Venus, Mercury, Sun, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, and all the zodiac of the visible stars, according to the new Ptolemaic system of astronomy. All of the stars were thought to be attached to a single crystal sphere. Yaldabaoth assigned 7 of his Archons to rule over the 7 planetary spheres, then creates the Earth and decides to populate it. Now, I can go on in this, and we probably get into it. I've sent a lot of these out. You should get it. If you don't have this, it really does bring out some really interesting aspects, of which every religion has that in it. It's just a fact. Now, I don't know about you, but here's my thinking. So is this representative of all the known universe? The one that they say is 15, 16 billion light years old? I don't think so. I don't think no Jehovah, no Jesus, no Yaldabaoth, no Lilith created the universe. I think they're Johnny-come-latelys to the table. I think something else did, and I think merely these entities assumed it. Which tells me that magic is the game changer. Yeah. How many of y'all saw the Justice League, the Infinity Wars? What did they say there? Doctor Strange, as you know, is the master wizard. And it's all about creating these multiple realities. And if you become good enough, you can actually walk into them, which means you don't leave your physical presence here. It goes with you. Which means that if you got trapped in one of those ultimate realities, you died here, but you didn't die. It's interesting. So we're going to get into some really good stuff this week, folks. So let me bring you into the one that, this is interesting. This is the book called The Children of Cain. It's a good read. You really should have this in your library if you are practicing and learning magic, the occult, understanding origins of where all these myths of religions oriented from. You see, it's interesting. I had someone write me about the incarnation. And he apparently was a very avid believer in reincarnation, but he's also apparently a man of reason. And he said, you're right. How can there be 7.5 billion plus here if this only started from one? Are we seeing merely a fractal of that personality? I don't know. This is a good book. It teaches the story about the children of Cain. You know, the thing that they don't want you to ever start questioning any pastor, any preacher, any evangelist, and never a Sunday school teacher, is that why did Adam never claim blood lineage to Cain? Now, Cain ended up in the story, the myth, you know, killing his brother. And of course, you know, Cain was then banished, exiled by this supposed God, that, by the way, was into blood sacrificing. Abel was into blood cults. You know, he was sacrificing animals. Cain brought forth the bounty of Sophia. But this Jewish God, which is actually the Christian God, because they didn't have a God, said, well, the earth was cursed. Well, he cursed it. Wait a minute. The asshole said that wait a minute. First he says he created it and it was good, and he blessed it. Then we get into the story. Well, no, now he's cursed it. In which was the purest of the gifts, the grains, the fruit of the earth. You see how they turned this around? It was Abel who was, in fact, the murderer. It was Abel who was already into the blood cults, emanating this God. Very well could have been y'all to both. I don't know. But though everyone that say God the Father. So Cain, and they get the story. I think it was actually Abel that wanted to kill Cain, because I think Cain was the one who had the knowledge. He had the knowledge of what we would call the angels. He had the knowledge that was not to be spoken of. But they turned the story, and if you believe the myth, the story, then Cain is of reptilian origin. And the story goes that he was supposedly marked by this God and banished. But later you'll read the Apocrypha, this God comes back to Cain. Yeah. The very one who banished him. Why? Because Cain carried the knowledge. Now, if you want it, just email me. I'll be more than happy to get it. Deep thoughts? What are you talking about? Obviously, I don't know what's going on because I don't keep up with this. But it's a matter of your perspective. I went back and reread the story, and I went, wait a minute. Cain was really the representative of Mother Earth, Sophia, the feminine. This God, this Hebraic God, rejected it. So this means this Hebraic God cursed Sophia, cursed the earth. She is alive. Why would a God curse a living planet? Deep shit, isn't it? Yeah, because we're in deep shit. We're so ignorant of the occult, of magic. So many people are afraid. I won't get into it, but someone who recognized me from here saw me out and said, oh, so you're the guy who practices witchcraft. I turned around and I said, I don't practice, I perfect it. Well, the son of a bitch left after when I said that. But you see where this war started? You dissect the myths out of these stories of creation in Genesis. Folks, it is obvious that there was something going on before we ever came into the picture. I don't know what they are. They claim to be higher intelligences, fine. But there was something else going on. And when you read the story now, and you think about this, think about it. Where am I wrong on this? You have one cat, Abel, killing animals, slitting their throats, drinking the blood on the altar. You have Cain, who comes and brings the first fruits. Now, they tried to change it around and say that he only brought the aftercut. No. So right from the beginning, who are you with? Are you with this God or are you with Earth? I'm going with Earth. Because it pisses me off to think that this kind of nonsense has been going on. And it goes on today. All right, well, okay. There you go. He cursed the ground and made man and woman. Isn't that something, man? I mean, that's like going into a poker game and the dealer or the person who's dealing has the 4 aces. You'll never win. It was a setup to begin with. And it still is. They don't like us talking about this. They don't like us sharing these kind of stories. This is the type of stuff that, oh, no. You know, dude, what are you doing? So it was the star, by the way. Yeah. I had a great time. So I leave you with this. So the thought is that because your consciousness, there's consequences to your actions. It could be, say, that it is a judgment against you. But the question is who is the judge? And is it a violation of an offense or is it a graduation? Munch on that for a little bit. Folks, we have fun here. It is fun tomorrow. Miss Trina didn't even get to everything I was going to get, but hey, we just roll with it. So yeah, the children of Cain. I wonder how many of us have got Cain's blood. Thank you, Viola. Abundant favor to you, my love, as well, to all of you. Hey, Big Al. Hello, Big Al. Hard to tell. Hard truth hell. Hello, how you doing? Good to see you. What color star? Green. It was a green one, John. Hey, Nina the Mystic. Join her live in a live chat. So, hey, y'all have y'all station. Let me know, and I'll make sure to get you up there. Hey, Darth, how good to see you. So if you've thought on some of these things, write me. I'd like to hear them. I mean, I'm backed up on my email, but I can't wait for us to get into groups, because this is the kind of discussion that when we would leave these groups, we're all going to be on cloud nine. I'm convinced of it. All right, folks, thank you. Have a great day. Favor be unto you. Favor surrounds you. It walks with you. It greets you, and it goes before you. And we're becoming wiser. We're willing to accept all ideas, but tyranny, subjugation, judgment, bigotry, we reject. We may be in the consideration of other species at the bottom, but you know what? Everyone starts at the bottom. We can always climb up higher. All right, folks, much love to you. Thank you, and I'll see you later. Bye-bye.